Imagine you've just taken one wrong step. Your breath turns to ice in the air before it reaches 2 inches from your face. The nearest hospital is 6 hours away by camel caravan, if the track even exists today. These are not undiscovered places. People live in them, people visit them, people die in them. These are the 10 places on this planet that should not exist, and the people who refuse to leave them. Number 10. Kīlauea Valley, Vine Bridges, Japan. Deep in the mountains of Shikoku Island, one of Japan's most remote regions, there hangs a bridge that should have been destroyed 9 centuries ago. The Iya Valley's Kazurabashi Vine Bridge stretches 45 meters across the Iya River, 14 meters above rushing water below. The planks are set roughly 8 inches apart. That's a gap wide enough to see exactly how far you'd fall. This bridge dates back to 1185, to the aftermath of Japan's Genpei War. According to legend, the defeated Heike samurai clan fled into these remote mountains to escape total annihilation. They built 13 vine bridges across the valley using Actinidia arguta, a tough, aggressive vine, specifically so the bridges could be cut with a single sword stroke if enemies gave chase. Of those 13 original bridges, only 3 survive today. The largest, Iya Kazurabashi, is rebuilt every 3 years, with steel cables now hidden beneath the vines for safety. But the gaps between the planks remain exactly as they were. One historical account from the original bridge era records that travelers who were not used to crossing would freeze in place, unable to go either forward or backward as the bridge swayed and bounced beneath them. Atlas Obscura describes the experience simply. You never think of vine bridges scary until you walk on one. But if Japan's vine bridges represent ancient ingenuity, our next location represents something more desperate. The oldest skyscraper city on Earth, currently surrounded by a war. Number 9. Shibam, Yemen. In the 1930s, British explorer Freya Stark looked out over a cluster of mud towers rising from the middle of the Yemeni desert and called it the Manhattan of the desert. The walled city of Shibam is not a ruin. Approximately 7,000 people still live there, and they live inside towers made entirely of mud. Towers that reach up to 11 stories and have been standing for up to 500 years. Shibam is considered the oldest city in the world to have used vertical construction as its primary urban design principle. The towers were built this way for a reason. In a desert surrounded by Bedouin raiders, building upward instead of outward transformed each home into a fortress. The higher you are, the harder you are to attack. The engineering problem is this: these towers are mud, and mud requires constant maintenance. The walls must be replastered with fresh mud regularly. If the rains come too hard, if a flood surges through the wadi, if no one is there to rebuild, the tower collapses. In 2008, a tropical cyclone flooded Shibam and compromised the foundations of multiple structures. Several collapsed. In 2009, an Al-Qaeda suicide bombing killed 4 South Korean tourists at the main viewpoint. In 2015, a car bomb detonated at a checkpoint entering the city. The civil war that has raged since has gutted the skilled workforce needed to maintain the towers. UNESCO states that the towers require constant upkeep. Without it, the walls erode from the outside in, wind, heat, and rain attacking the exposed mud surface. The bricks themselves decrease in size on the upper floors, meaning the very top of each tower has the thinnest, most exposed walls. About 500 of the city's towers are classified as high-rises. Right now, they are drying out and dissolving, one wall, one storm, one missed repair at a time. The next place on our list is very different. No war, no collapsing towers, just the earth itself, boiling. Number 8. Hverir Geothermal Field, Iceland. Locals call it Eldhús Djöfulsins, the Devil's Kitchen. The ground at Hverir is boiling, not metaphorically. The mud pots here reach temperatures approaching 100 degrees Celsius at the surface. Go underneath and temperatures exceed 200 degrees. Hverir sits on the Krafla volcanic system in northern Iceland, where the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates are literally pulling apart. The magma chamber sits just 3 to 5 kilometers underground. That's not geology. That's geology with immediate consequences. The gases escaping from the vents include hydrogen sulfide, which at low concentrations smells like rotten eggs. At higher concentrations, it irritates your eyes and airways. At the right wind direction, it can cause headaches, nausea, and, in enclosed spaces, be lethal. One Icelandic traveler describes getting sulfur poisoning from standing downwind during a strong gust and spending 2 days recovering. The local description from Icelanders who grew up here is blunt. We hear horror stories about what happens when people step into hidden mud pools. The skin comes straight off. The "looks like Mars" comparison gets used a lot in Icelandic travel writing. At Hverir, it is accurate. Scientists who study astrobiology use this site as a model for what early Mars may have looked like. No other landscape on the planet looks quite like this one. If Hverir is where the Earth simmers, the next location is where it incinerates. Number 7. Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. The Danakil Depression holds the official record as the hottest permanently inhabited location on Earth, with an average annual temperature of 34.6 degrees Celsius. But average is a misleading word here. Temperatures in the Danakil regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius. Scientists working at the Dalal crater site have recorded spikes to 55 degrees, at which point the nearest comparison is an oven set to bake. The Danakil sits 125 meters below sea level in the northern tip of Ethiopia near the Eritrean border. It's the result of 3 tectonic plates, the Arabian, Nubian, and Somali, slowly pulling apart. The crust here is so thin that the lava beneath is close enough to the surface to cook whatever touches it. Erda Al, which means smoking mountain in the Afar language, is located here, one of only 6 continuously active lava lakes on Earth. You can stand at its rim and look directly into molten rock. At Dalal, the hydrothermal pools are so acidic that scientists who work there must wear gas masks for extended exposure. The toxic gases, hydrogen sulfide and chlorine vapor, are invisible. The ground you're walking on is a thin crust of salt over boiling acid. One researcher explained it simply. If you fell into 100 degrees Celsius and extremely acidic water, it would be a big problem. The closest hospital is in Mekelle, many hours away. And yet, the Afar people have lived in the Danakil for centuries. They mine salt from its ancient deposits, salt up to 800 meters thick, loading camel caravans that carry it across the desert to market. Each camel carries up to 34-kilogram bricks. The round trip takes 2 days. In 1974, researchers found Lucy here, the 3.2-million-year-old early human ancestor. In the place where the Earth is most hostile to life, the earliest evidence of our species was buried in the ground. Number 6. Mount Huashan Plank Walk, China. This is a plank walk. The plank is 30 centimeters wide, roughly the width of a shoe. It is bolted to the side of a vertical cliff face at a minimum height of 300 meters above the ground. It is just over 100 meters long. You are given a harness and 2 carabiners. You are entirely responsible for moving those carabiners from one anchor chain to the next as you go. When another hiker passes you going the other direction, one of you must unclip a carabiner, lean outward over open air, step around the other person's body, and reclip. Mount Hua is one of China's 5 sacred mountains, a site of Taoist pilgrimage for over 1,500 years. The plank walk was constructed by a Taoist priest more than 700 years ago to provide access to a remote tea house carved into the summit rock. At the time, he had no harness, he had no carabiners, but wooden pegs, rope, and determination. Rumors that 100 people die per year on Mount Huashan are unconfirmed, but researchers confirm that deaths do occur regularly, primarily from falls on the mountain's many narrow staircases, which have no rails and sheer drops on both sides. Ancient Origins describes Mount Hua's trail as one of the most dangerous hiking trails in the world. Given that this is a mountain where the path to the tea house requires hanging over a 300-meter drop, that assessment seems reasonable. Number 5. Zanskar Valley, Chadar Trek, India. The Zanskar Valley, deep in the Indian Himalayas, is one of the most isolated inhabited regions on Earth. In summer, the only way in is over high mountain passes. In winter, those passes close under meters of snow. the valley seals completely. Except for one route, the Chadar trek, 105 kilometers across the frozen surface of the Zanskar River, through a gorge with walls up to 600 meters high and sometimes only 5 meters wide. The river walls are essentially vertical. There is no way up and no way out until you reach the other end. The ice is the trail, and the ice changes. A warm day, a shifting current, a crack in the wrong place, and the floor you're walking on becomes open water. At minus 30 degrees Celsius in a gorge with no exit. The nearest hospital from the deep valley is hours away by jeep once the gorge even ends. For the people of Zanskar, this was never adventure tourism. For centuries, the Chadar was the only way to reach Leh in winter, to buy supplies, to take children to school, to reach a hospital for medical emergencies. They walked this frozen river carrying butter to trade because the only time it wouldn't spoil on the journey was when everything was frozen solid. Number 4. K2, Pakistan. More people have been to space than to the summit of K2. Everest is taller, but K2 has the higher death rate by a significant margin. Historically, approximately 1 climber died for every 4 who reached the summit, a fatality rate of nearly 25%. Among major 8,000ers, only Annapurna is deadly. The mountain's most feared section is called the Bottleneck, a narrow couloir at 8,200 meters, directly beneath a massive hanging serac of ice. Climbers must pass through this section during the death zone push, on their way to the summit and back. The serac above it can collapse without warning. On August 1st and 2nd, 2008, 11 climbers were killed in a single 24-hour period when the serac collapsed, destroying the fixed ropes and trapping multiple teams above the bottleneck in the dark. The survivors described chaos, confusion, and descending by feel in the pitch black at 8,000 meters. It remains the single deadliest event in K2's history. American mountaineer George Bell coined K2's nickname after returning from the failed 1953 expedition. He called it the Savage Mountain, not for its deaths, but for what it did to every person who attempted it. The mountain does not simply kill climbers, it exhausts them, it freezes them, it takes their fingers and toes even when it lets them walk away. Above 8,000 meters, what climbers call the death zone, the human body cannot acclimatize. Every hour spent there, the body deteriorates. Mental clarity fades, judgment fails. The descent becomes as dangerous as the ascent. No helicopter can reach a climber above 7,000 meters on K2. If you are in trouble up there, you are alone. Number 3. Oymyakon, Russia. In 1933, on the 6th of February, a thermometer in the small Siberian village of Oymyakon registered minus 67.7 degrees Celsius. That is, by official record, the coldest temperature ever measured in a place where human beings live year-round. For reference, the freezing point of rubbing alcohol is minus 89 degrees Celsius. Oymyakon gets close. Let me explain what minus 67 degrees actually means in physical terms. At minus 40 degrees, exposed skin develops frostbite in less than 10 minutes. At minus 50 degrees, the average winter temperature in Oymyakon, cars must be kept running around the clock. If you turn a car off, the engine oil solidifies and the fuel lines freeze. The battery dies. You are not getting that car started again until spring. At minus 55 degrees, school closes. That is the official Oymyakon policy. Below minus 55 degrees Celsius, children are kept home because the walk to school becomes medically dangerous. At minus 67 degrees, the temperature Oymyakon reached in 1933, ink freezes in a pen. The mercury in old-fashioned thermometers ceases to flow. The air itself becomes thick with ice fog, and your breath crystallizes audibly, a faint crackling sound the moment it leaves your mouth. And yet, approximately 500 people call this place home. They are primarily the Yakut people, an indigenous group who have lived in Siberia for centuries. Their homes are built from thick logs with triple-pane windows. Their food is dominated by meat and fish. The permafrost is 1,500 meters deep here, making it impossible to grow vegetables. The word Oymyakon itself comes from the Evenki language, meaning unfrozen water, a reference to a thermal spring near the village that stays liquid even in the depths of winter. The nearest city, Yakutsk, is 930 kilometers away, along a highway known as the Road of Bones, named after the Soviet Gulag prisoners who died building it. To bury the dead in Oymyakon, the ground must first be thawed with fires burning for 3 days. The permafrost is too deep to dig otherwise. The people of Oymyakon do not consider this extraordinary. They consider it February. Number 2, Parotaktsang, Tiger's Nest, Bhutan. There is a moment on the hike to Tiger's Nest Monastery where you turn a corner, and it appears for the first time, a complex of temples, prayer halls, and shrines clinging to a vertical granite cliff face at 3,120 meters above sea level, nearly 1,000 meters above the valley floor. It looks like it was placed there by something that did not have to obey gravity. The legend of its founding is consistent with the architecture. According to Bhutanese tradition, the 8th century Buddhist master, Guru Padmasambhava, the figure credited with bringing Buddhism to Bhutan, flew here from Tibet on the back of a bade, tigress. He landed on this cliffside, entered a cave, and meditated there for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours. The tigress, a transformation of his disciple, waited at the base. In 1692, the ruler of Bhutan, Tenzin Rabgye, believed to be the reincarnation of Guru Padmasambhava himself, built the monastery that stands today around that sacred cave. Consider what it meant to build this. Every beam, every brick, every tile of gilding on every shrine, carried up a mountain path on human backs at altitude to a construction site balanced on a vertical cliff face 900 meters above the valley. The workers had no harnesses. The path had no rails. In 1998, fire broke out inside the monastery. Priceless artwork was destroyed. A monk was killed. The Bhutanese people, led by the 4th king, rebuilt it stone by stone over the following years, reopening it in 2005. Today, every Bhutanese Buddhist is expected to make the pilgrimage to Tiger's Nest at least once in their life. In 2015, Prince William and Kate Middleton made the same hike, in the same wind, up the same narrow path to see for themselves the monastery that should not exist. One place remains, and it is the most primal of them all. Not a bridge, not a tower, not a path up a mountain. This one is the earth itself, actively creating new land in real time and daring you to stand on it. Number 1, Kīlauea Lava Coastline, Hawaii. The big island of Hawaii is being created in front of you right now. Kīlauea has been erupting continuously since 1983. Every day, molten rock at over 1,150 degrees Celsius pours from the East Rift Zone through underground lava tubes and into the Pacific Ocean. Every day, the island gets fractionally larger. Standing here requires understanding 3 things. The first is the delta itself. Where lava flows into the ocean, it builds a platform of loose rubble on an unstable submarine slope. This platform, the lava delta, looks solid. It is not. It is a thin crust of new rock over a shifting pile of rubble and hot lava tubes extending over a steep underwater cliff. Without warning, entire sections of it collapse into the ocean. When they do, they trigger steam explosions that have hurled meter-sized boulders up to 250 meters inland. The second hazard is the seawater itself. The water surrounding the ocean entry reaches temperatures capable of 3rd-degree burns. In 1994, 2 people standing at the water's edge were caught by a sudden wave and hospitalized with severe scalding. The third is called LAZE, lava haze. According to the USGS, it is a mixture of hydrochloric acid gas, superheated steam, and tiny shards of volcanic glass, produced as the ocean water's salt reacts with the molten rock. It has the corrosive properties of dilute battery acid at a pH of 1.5 to 3.5. The glass shards are small enough to become airborne in the plume. If you breathe them, they lacerate the lung tissue from the inside. In November 2000, 2 people were found dead near the Kīlauea ocean entry, having inhaled the steam plume when seawater washed across the active flow. The medical examiner's cause of death, pulmonary edema from steam inhalation. The USGS title of their official visitor guidance document is not subtle. Death happens, respect coastal entry hazards, and stay alive. Here's the thing about all 10 of these places. They are not empty. Every one of them is inhabited. Every one of them has been inhabited, some of them for centuries, some for millennia. People wake up in Oymyakon and start their frozen cars before dawn and walk to work in the dark at -50 degrees. People plaster the walls of Shibam tower by tower, season by season. People cross the Zanskar ice every winter because it is the only way to reach the outside world. What these places prove, beyond their geology, beyond their engineering, beyond their danger statistics, is something stubbornly, almost irrationally human. We don't go to the places that are easy. We go to the places that are ours. We build where physics says we cannot. We stay where nature says we should not. We find a way to bury our dead when the ground is frozen solid, and we dig regardless. These are not 10 impossible places. These are 10 proof points that human beings are the most impossible creatures on this planet. Which of these 10 places would you dare to visit? Drop it in the comments, number 1 through 10, and tell me why. If this video made you look at the planet differently, there's more where this came from. The world has places far stranger than anything on the map. Subscribe so you're there when we find the next one.